Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Our guest today is Ken Madsen. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thanks, AD. Appreciate you. Happy to be here.
Ken, just to say for introductions, you're a senior recruiter with Monarch Investment and Management Group.
That is correct. Yep, that's what I do, and I love it, man. Yep, it's going good. Yep.
So, Ken, please tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, your background, professional, personal, some things that you like to share with the audience.
Yeah, sure. No, it's fun because I always say, when it comes to recruiting in general, people start at different walks of life, and you got to be open-minded to whatever they started out at. We don't just jump into recruiting. I remember being at one of the main recruiting conferences a few years back, and they said, "Hey, who in this room thought they were going to be a recruiter?" I mean, there's probably 150 people there. Not one person raised their hand and said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." So it kind of makes me think about your question there too, as far as, yeah, we all kind of start from different backgrounds, but be open to people, right? Look at their character and run from that. We can, of course, get into that later. But myself, I grew up in a very small town in northern Michigan called Grayling. Wouldn't trade it for the world, man. Small town, about 2,000, 2,500 people. And I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I learned a lot about life, and growing up, we didn't have everything, but we didn't need everything. It was about treating people right and working hard and grinding. So I loved that. Graduated high school from up there. I did do a few years of college and got an associate's degree through Kirtland Community College, which is up north. As far as work goes, I did the kind of classic fast food to start. That wasn't for me. I ended up getting into the restaurant field actually for 12 years when it was all said and done. I worked at a brewery up north, then transitioned to more the corporate side of restaurants for Ruby Tuesday, of all places. And I did that for 12 years. And out of the blue, I had a friend say, "Hey, Kane, I think you should lease apartments." I said, "Okay, what do I do?" And it's just like, "Hey, I just think you're a fun person. You've got a personality where you could transition well into this." And at the time, 12 years of restaurants was weighing heavily on me. I can also say I wouldn't take that and trade that for anything. Maybe some of the holidays I worked, I could trade that. But I learned a lot about how to treat people right, customer service to a T, listening to people, going above and beyond whatever it takes. And I really did learn a lot about how to treat people. And I actually attribute that incredibly a lot to where I'm at today. And, we talk about just being thankful for stuff. It molded me into who I am and where I'm at today. So fast forward from that, yep, a friend said, "Come lease." I said, "Hey, the hours are better. Health and dental benefits, a 401k match just made sense." The career in restaurants just wasn't a long-term career for me, even though I played it on for a long time. So started leasing, became a leasing manager. And then, ended up Monarch bought our properties from the Sterling Group. So it was a new acquisition takeover. I was didn't know what to expect. I met Chuck, Monarch's COO. Coolest guy I've ever met in my life. Still to this day, and I'll butter him up on the podcast. I love Chuck to death. And then I met Bobby, possibly the future owner of Monarch. They took over and said, "Hey, Kane, here you go." Within a year, they said, "Hey, we want to create a position for you doing recruiting." I said, "Okay, awesome. Once again, what do I do?" They said, "Just take the ball and run with it." Bobby's always said that. So I took the ball and ran with it. 7 years now, we've had a recruiting team. We had nothing. We had one person, Anthony Patron, my colleague, friend, who was in HR/employee relations/recruiting. So we started our recruiting department 7 years ago with Monarch. And since then, they've put me into this senior role, like you mentioned, where I kind of help mentor and train our staff, our team, and just try to do whatever it takes to be successful, from job ad placement to sourcing techniques, what we even say on the phone, the playbook of recruiting I was able to get on paper for how we actually recruit, which was really cool. Probably the best thing I've done, I think, as far as contributions to Monarch. And then we just keep an eye on each other, work together as a team. And we can get more into that, but my team's absolutely phenomenal. We bounce ideas all the time. I'm definitely not a know-it-all either. People are really cool. They like my ideas and stuff. But yeah, we work together to do this multifamily housing recruiting. So happy to be here, and that's kind of a long story of my background, but hopefully it gives you some insight.
How large of a recruiting team do you have over there?
We have an analyst off and on that helps with reports and stuff. So we have about a team of 12, give or take, depending on. We try to borrow Drew as much as we can. He's kind of our brains guy who does a lot of analytics. And, as you know, it's a big part of recruiting, right? You have to track, how many hires you have, the cost per applicant, the cost per hire, where are you advertising, what's working, what's not working, how many hires did you have this month? We track all those metrics with Monarch. And I think if you don't have that, it's really hard to go off of baseline. So typically, yep, we run with a team of 12, and it's awesome. Yeah, we have different. So, with Monarch, we can get into more detail down the road here, but we're the 8th largest in the United States now for ownership, which is pretty amazing. And so we're in 20 states. So we have different regions that we cover depending on the recruiter, depending on where we're, each property in different regions we have, a bigger presence in. So we kind of split it out to break it down, and I'm here to help with whatever I can to make sure we're doing what we should be doing. That's pretty cool.
How many apartments are you managing overall, your company?
Yeah, I wish I could keep track. So it's just in the United States. I think we have like 74,000 the last I looked. Yeah, which is quite insane. We've grown quite a bit since I've been here now. I'll be coming up, I guess, total recruiting 7 years with Monarch, about 9 now. So, yeah, we've grown quite a bit since I've been here. And, I think it's a testament to our ownership. And, we only own and manage our properties. So there's no fee managed sites at Monarch. And I think that's really awesome. And to also be an internal recruiter, not a third party headhunter, I love, because I've embraced this whole entire mission of meeting Chuck, the first person who's the COO, to sitting down with Bobby and creating this vision for me that I didn't even know existed, being recruiting. So, but yeah, we're booming and doing well, and I'm thankful to be a part of it, to be honest.
So if I'm a interested party, and I say, hey, Kane, why Monarch? Why should I come work for your company? What are some great things that you could share right here with the audience that will maybe pique someone's interest in coming join the Monarch team?
Sure. No, I love that stuff. First off, if it's you, Adrian, the maintenance side, you get to work with me. So, I mean, think about that first and foremost. But no, the fact that we own and manage our properties, the fact that you can walk around our corporate office, it's jeans and flannel culture. This is not suit and tie. We're bigger and better than our people on site. They absolutely realize the value of their employees on site, specifically maintenance. The COVID bonuses they threw the maintenance techs that were on site were absolutely incredible. I would leave it up to them to discuss how much, but it was a very, very generous thing that they did. But honestly, I think the way we treat people is the difference. And I know that people say that all the time, but our quarterly bonuses are fantastic for maintenance. So you get $750 a quarter, an extra $3,000 over the course of a year. And that's based on merit. This isn't a property-based NOI. If you don't get it, you don't get it. No, this is saying, hey, if you're grinding and working your tail off, you're going to get it. And I think that's a really cool approach to that. We'll get into labor market, but just being more creative. Our on-call bonus, we bumped up to $100 the week you're on call. So even if no one calls you, you're going to get $100 right up front. I think that's thoughtful and just shows people we care, right? That's not a fun thing to be on call after you've worked your tail off all week. You've done this for 20-some years, so you get it for sure. Any major holidays, a separate $50 bonus on the maintenance side. I always say we clothe you. $100 for boots, $100 for pants, $250 for tools in the first year. After a year and a half, you go up to $500 in tool reimbursement. I think that's amazing. You have to have what you need to do your job and do it successfully. We want to take that headache away from you. We have annual raises up to 5% every year. We don't cap out at any position. I mentioned we're in 20 states. So you can actually grow a realistic career. I think that's a huge difference, that people don't ever feel stuck. And being in Michigan here, to go to North Carolina or Texas to get to warmer weather, I think gives people options that are exciting for them. We have $30 a month Blue Cross health insurance. I think that's absolutely fantastic for yourself. And, you can add others on. Insurance does go up with that, but we've made it incredibly affordable for people to get the top carrier. That stuff's super important. We match your 401k at 3% right now. And I think we just, like I said, treat people the way they want to be treated. And the bonuses through COVID show that, the annual reviews, these boots and tools. I think just getting creative, but also listening to our people. I think that's, the other difference too. They're in the trenches. So the on-call was a problem. So what do? You listen to what they're saying and you adapt to it. Because if not, we're going to be talking about it, but you're going to be left probably Sure. Um, the only other thing I can tell you, if someone asked me today why they should work for us, obviously I like to rattle off the perks because I think those are empirical ways that show we actually do care about the people. But we have a fish fry event, we call it. It's an annual thing. This will be the 9th year in a row. So we rent out an entire resort in Michigan. It's up in Houghton Lake, actually close to where I grew up, which is kind of funny. Right on the lake. So the Friday is paid off of work for any employee in Michigan. They can bring their entire family if they have one, significant other if they have one. If not, bring your best friend. You can stay Friday and Saturday at no cost to you on this resort. We had over 500 people last year and their families. There's an indoor water park for the kids. We rent out 3 pontoon boats. Jermaine brings his jet ski, karaoke, volleyball, cornhole, all the food and drinks you could imagine. And I can firsthand tell you, Adrian, that it's probably the coolest thing I've ever heard any company do for their people. And what other way can you show them that you care to say, hey, you've been in this industry for a long time. It's summertime, it's busy. Friday, get out of here. Don't worry about work. We're going to pay you. Stay the weekend at no cost to you. It's a mini vacation for every employee and their family. And when you get to meet people outside of work and you get to mingle, it becomes more real, right? It's more empirical. It's more, hey, it's not just that person that works in Grand Rapids. That's Anthony Boone, and Anthony's been a friend of mine. His wife's name's Elizabeth. That's one of the 49 properties in Michigan I'm just rattling off. I actually know these people and we know each other, and it's more real and you're more vested. And I think when you can create a culture like that, I don't think anyone can really hold a candle to that. But that's my final push as far as why I think that's what sets us apart. I think is treating people the way that they should and showing them that.
I love your passion about what your company is about, and also the benefits and the work environment that your company is providing to their employees. So I had to commend you for that, because I don't see that often. So I could tell that you're very passionate and you really enjoy being a part of that organization right there.
Thanks, man.
So Ken, I want to talk about the current state of labor market in a multifamily space, right? How are we doing from a labor shortage standpoint, right? It was 2 years ago, 3 years ago was a great resignation. People, I think not people, but maybe media, I should call it. The society is trying to label certain phenomena that are happening in a market at any given time. So we had that. We still have a shortage, a significant shortage of personnel, especially on the maintenance side. So I do want to ask you, right, if you compare this time with the times during COVID and pre-COVID, right, before COVID, how do you see the current labor market from a maintenance talent shortage standpoint? And how do we address that, right? How do we overcome that?
Sure. No, I mean, it's a great question and it's real life stuff. And to answer your first question, I mean, COVID was probably some of the toughest years I've ever had recruiting. I'm not going to lie about it. It was just incredibly tough all around. Just not many applicants. People were staying home and, making good money, not working. That's something that you can't control either. That always makes it a super tough challenge. But, I do think, to answer your question too, it's starting to open up a little bit better. But any recruiter in multifamily is going to be lying to you if they say, "Oh, we've just got a ton of people coming in the door." It's definitely every day is a true challenge. So how do you overcome that? I think you've got to. I mean, the retention in general is a problem with the labor market with multifamily. Retaining people, retention they talk about all the time. Just we have a high percentage of industry turnover, and I'm willing to get into that if you want to, but I want to help answer your question, which is a good question. I think you have to adapt and you have to be absolutely as fast as possible with not only responding to applicants that come through, you have to source passively, find the talent, but say the right things to them and don't push them. People don't need to be pushed. If they've got the skill set, tell them what's in it for them. Like when you asked me that question and I could kind of rattle off things, that's what I focus on. And that's what Monarch, our recruiting team, does focus on. More of a salesy approach to say, hey, the ball's in your court, right? The ball is in the maintenance field's court. It's just what can we do for them? So I think to get out of it, you have to be open-minded to change some of the things that you're doing, not just be closed-minded. Oh, we haven't had an applicant in 7 days. Okay, well, why aren't we getting those applicants? The pay has obviously been a crazy thing, since COVID into this, where people are just kind of paying whatever to get their talent in, and then retaining them is the other part. So I do think you got to pay I would like to say above market 100%. And I agree that that's a challenge every day, even with us. I'm not going to say Monarch is perfect with that, but we really strive to be the best we can. But I think to answer your question, COVID was the toughest years I've ever had recruiting. Just nobody was really applying. I don't think people were motivated. I think our world was just sad, to be completely honest. It was just kind of a dark time. I do think people are kind of being a little bit more open to applying, but it's not booming. I mean, we're not getting tons of applications, every time we open up a maintenance spot. But I think you got to be open-minded. We've looked into, to high schools, which is really awesome. I really love that part of my job. We've looked into, of course, trade schools and trying to find people in the HVAC side that are coming out, give them a different avenue. So I think to bridge the gap or figure it out, you got to pay a little bit above market. You have to offer people realistic things that can actually benefit them, because it's about them. It's about that maintenance tech. It's not about me. My job ad does not need to be Monarch's the 8th largest in the U.S. and we're awesome. Yeah, we are awesome. We're the 8th largest, but it needs to be focused on, hey, this is what we can do for you. And I think if you don't spin it about the candidate, why are they going to look at the ad? There's a million ads in a million places they could work, right? So what sets you apart is, I think, making it about them and being transparent. My gosh, the amount of people that don't put pay in their ads drives me absolutely bananas. It's my biggest pet peeve. I literally say in my ads sometimes, Adrian, I'm going to be transparent with you. I'm going to lay out exactly what we can offer you, and I'm going to let you decide what you think. And I think it's just so funny. It's such an honest approach, but nobody does that. But how many ads do you read? It's all the same thing. And we'll get into, my style of this goofy kind of goofball wrapped in a passionate guy. But I think you got to offer, like I said, good pay, good benefits, things that make sense for the candidate, make it about them. And also, you got to be fast. If you get an applicant, we kind of chatted about that before, you got to be on it right now. I mean, I'm not afraid to call somebody within the first 5 minutes if they're a good candidate. And as you know, they can work just about anywhere. So, that first impression and how you respond to them, I think goes a long way. But we've got a long way to go as an industry as far as retention. And I think every company knows that. But I think we got to start paying better, and we got to take care of these people, because without maintenance, and I'm not just buttering you up either, man. I know you started off with grounds and worked your way up to this awesome career, which I'm very proud of you, by the way. I'm super happy to be here, by the way. Thank you for even inviting me onto this podcast. It's amazing. You got to take care of those people, because they're the backbone of every property, and it's no secret. But let's make them feel valued. And I think sometimes going back to the basics of thanking them, treating them the way they want to be treated, remembering their birthdays, bringing them a snack. It's not a pizza party on Fridays. It's let their family go to this fish fry. Take your family up and get away. Finding an empirical way that's true and genuine, and how you deliver it is the other part of it. But we're working on that consistently. So the market, yeah, it's tough. It was tough before. It's still tough now. Got to be open-minded, creative, not be afraid to pay, stay as fast as possible as far as communication, and be honest with the applicant, I think is, I guess, my way to answer your question, hopefully.
So I picked up on several things from what you said, right? And let me start with the first one. What you basically described when you said, hey, it's all about the candidate, right? It's not about you. It's not about what you could offer. It's about them. Well, I always say recruiting is sales. If you don't realize that, you're going to be in real trouble. Right. When you actually advertise an open position, you're trying to sell a product. That position is the product that you're selling. The potential candidates, they're your potential customer, right? You can't be out there and saying people don't want to work, because basically when you say that, you're blaming the customer for not buying your product. Right. So how many successful companies have you seen stating out there, going on a market and saying, our customers are dumb, or like they don't know any better. They don't buy our beautiful products. If you don't make a good enough product, you got to go back to the drawing board and build a better product that's more attractive. First. Secondly, you said treat people like they want to be treated. Everybody likes to say, treat people like you want to be treated. Well, I guess we're not really thinking about, not everybody wants to be treated like you want to be treated. Take time and know your people and know your candidates and treat them like they expect to be treated, versus saying, oh, I want to treat them like I want to be treated. Not everybody wants to be treated like we do, right?
Really
So what do you say in regards to the recruiting yourselves? Do you agree that that's what we do when we recruit, we try to
100.
sell?
I can't disagree with anything you said. I think it's 100% sales. I think it is 100% treating the people you want to do. And how do you do that? By being honest with them. If they don't get that position, you follow up with them. You say, hey, look, unfortunately, we went a different direction, but I'm going to tell you my goal is to keep in touch with you, and I'm going to do everything I can to find you an opportunity. We're in 20 states. I appreciate your time going to this interview, and I appreciate that. And I think, just like you said, simple basic stuff. Not everybody wants to hear the same thing, but who doesn't want to hear, hey, I didn't get the job. Okay, that's not the best. Who wants to say I didn't get it? But thanks for interviewing. Oh wow, okay, yeah, thank you. That's kind of nice. And then hey, let's figure this out. Let's keep in touch. And I think that's what we can do as an industry, even, or to be the best we can be, is to go back to the basics, inform them, right? Communicate, even when it's not the fun things. We talked about this even prior. It's not always perfect blue skies and perfect and everything's great. I think it's what you do in those tough times and what you say to those people that don't get the jobs. I think that's what makes you different or better than the other people. It's taking the time to go through the trenches with these people. And it's not always perfect, but I think if you battle with them, you show that you're vested in them as a candidate, truthfully, and you communicate overly with them so they can feel that. I think that's the difference between a great recruiter and a good recruiter. Somebody who's not afraid to just fill a seat. No, being internal, I want you to be successful, right? And I want to get the right person for the property. But I think we're on the same page as far as, yes, it's a sales position for sure. You got to make it about the person, and you have to have something that's going to grab their eye, right? And the companies that say, yep, nobody wants to work. Okay, what have you done on your own? What passive search? So every month we look at our Indeed sourcing techniques. What are we saying to candidates? What are we pitching to candidates? And how many are replying, hey, I'm interested, or hey, thanks, but no thanks? We keep track of all these metrics at Monarch. And at the end of the day, to kind of answer your question on that, if I'm the recruiter and I've got ads up, but I'm not getting much, and I could relay to the hiring team, hey, still not much coming through. I've called the first few people that seemed okay. We scheduled one. We're on day 20 and I only have 7 active applicants. Well, look on Indeed. I've headhunted 100 people I've reached out to about this specific position, and they're replying, hey, the pay just isn't there. Hey, the pay isn't there. Keep track of how many on-hold comp issues you have. Present that to your team and say, look, I just found 8 people that are terrific at maintenance. They're all saying we're not paying enough. So you present that, and it's that recruiter hiring manager battle we all have, but at least you have something empirical to present to say, hey, and also, I'm doing what I can on my end. So even if they're not just applying because, like you said, maybe your product isn't that good. Maybe you're not offering something that's going to make somebody apply for it. That's a reality strike. Sometimes we have to fight with our hiring teams. But on the back end of recruiter, yeah, what am I doing behind the scenes to at least try to make this happen? And I do think people are willing to work. I think they just need to have something that makes sense.
Also, I want to pick up on something that you said on the last response and the one prior to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So most ads that you see, let's just take LinkedIn, right? Because that's the #1 professional network. Most ads that you see on LinkedIn, honestly, they're just some Canva stuff with with plastic content. I used to call it plastic because it doesn't smell, it doesn't taste like anything.
Right.
I think it could look pretty, but it still has no soul, right? It has no soul, it's soulless. So how many of those we see flooding the internet? It gets to a point where you scroll through your feed, and if you're looking for a job, they don't even get your attention because they all look the same. They're just changing a couple of colors here and there, a couple of titles here and there. But sometimes I even confuse management companies, right? Because their canvas look just about the same. So with that being said, I wanted to say that I guess when we first connected on LinkedIn, what really attracted me about you was that you actually do your own ads, and you make your own videos, you put them out there, you put yourself out there, and you're actually taking the chance to be, I guess, criticized or ridiculous. People say, what is this type of, this type of video? Me personally, I love it because it shows your creativity, it shows your passion, it shows your desire to show something different, a different face of, like, first of all, the fact that you're a human. Secondly, that you're a person with humor, that has humor. And third of all, you don't want to settle for, I guess, what the rest of the industry is. So tell me a little bit about how did you come up with those ideas, and how does that work within your company culture? Like, don't you have someone saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing this because, that affects the brand? And the reason I'm asking you is because
No.
I'm hearing a lot of times, like, I even have hard time with certain companies when I invite people from certain institutions, companies, groups, invite them to the podcast. They're saying, look, I can't just show up to your podcast because we use a PR firm. We're like, our brand, it's about brand protection and everything. And I said, okay, you're a leader of your company, and if they don't trust you enough to go public and just make some statements and show how great your company is, how do they trust you to oversee hundreds of millions or billions of dollars worth of real estate? Even a service manager, it's part of managing 50, 60, 80 million dollars worth of real estate. If you don't trust them enough that they could speak for, like, they would not, I guess, embarrass you as a company, right? You're afraid that they're gonna affect your image. Well, how do they act when they interact with your customer, with your resident on site? Are they really the right people? That's just a take. I guess I understand brand. I understand brand to some extent, but when you go to those lengths to just put a ban on people showing on a podcast or expressing themselves in social media, that's on a whole nother level. So I'll let you speak to that. How did you come up with the ideas of creating your own ads, and how is your company reacting to that? What is the higher up reaction to those videos that you're putting out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, thanks for the kind words, and you hit the nail on the head. I've never been a person that likes mundane, obvious, boring, the same news feed, the same job ad. So I think just growing up, like I said, in a small town, I was always just kind of this guy who, I did my best to treat everybody the same I treat people today, just trying to be cool with everybody. I mean, I played sports, but I also was in a band. So I had like a mixture of different people I hung out with. What I'm getting at, I just kind of felt like I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to treat people what I do. I wasn't afraid to have my hair in a faux hawk, but to also play hockey, but also be in a band. And what I'm getting at is just inspired to not be like anybody else. I was proud of who I was, and I really kind of molded myself into this guy that says, hey, I think it's okay to be a little bit different and be original. And I'm kind of a goofball. My mom was a huge goofball, by the way. I wish she was still alive because she was legendary to who I am. People that may be watching this will probably laugh because I am a spitting image of my mother. She was fantastic. But she was just different. She was goofy and fun and just didn't really care. I remember her wearing goofy clothes and, we're going to the grocery store. Mom, what are you doing? She's like, I don't care. And you know what? She would talk to every single person, and people just loved her for who she was. And I think she was I'd be lying if I didn't say she's a huge role model to start on how all this happened. But fast forward, I've always been influenced by bands that are just different. 311 is my all-time favorite band. They're just original, and they got crunchy guitar riffs. They'll mix reggae and rock and funk and disco. So I've always just been like attracted to things that just are different or just not the same. So fast forward that in this recruiting thing, I think I was in shoes like you were. I was just looking at all these ads and I was just like, okay, I'm not a mundane person, so I don't really want to portray that. And going back to your branding thing, really ridiculous for somebody to say they wouldn't want to do that. I have my own brand of recruiting, like you mentioned. I've had people, and that's what it's all about. You're a recruiter, right? You don't have to stick to any specific trend. I actually think if you want to stand out in anything, be a little different, right? I mean, if you want to stand out, be a little different. And you kind of mentioned, I had one guy respond to me and said I had like a goofy filter on my face. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was like I've got the fish on the head, or I've got like a vampire face. And truly, it's my spin. It's my way to almost, we talk about life hacks. It's my way to hack the boring. And you do get occasional people that, this one guy, what did he say? That is so unprofessional and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? And I wasn't mad at him. I said, it's called having fun. And I said, I really recommend you should try it sometime, because I honestly think our world since COVID, nobody wants to have fun. And I preach this to my team too. Not that I'm better than them by any means, because actually some of them are probably better than me, Adrian, to be honest. We have a great team. But I encourage them to be their own personal brand. Be yourself. My gosh, in a world full of similar stuff, just be you. If me is me is doing a goofy face, then do it. If it's whatever you got to do to be you, do it. You don't have to be Kane and do goofy faces, but be yourself. So when this guy responded, I do have some criticism, I guess, if you will, but it's not usually anything too crazy. It's kind of people just going, oh. But I've had people come up to me at events. I mean, nothing like you, by the way, Mr. Celebrity. Everywhere you go, there's pictures. I love it, man. You are like the guru of it. And like I said, thank you for letting me even come on here. And it's been awesome just even taking time with you. I actually got cleaned up today too. I figured you'd be proud of me there. So maybe if we do this like once a month, I can dress appropriately. But no, you're awesome at what you do, man. You really are. But yeah, I had a guy come up to me and said, "Hey, are you that goofy guy that does all the goofy things?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "I think it's awesome." And this was actually a very high-end person at one of the Glass Start events. And I thought about that, and I looked at it two ways, and I think you know the answer. I'm being me, and I'm not going to change who I am. So I took it as, hey, that's an awesome compliment. So you get that mixture of feelings, but I also don't really care about the people that don't like it, because if they can't see that, to answer your second part of your question, that this company allows me to be myself, how amazing is that? What company says, hey, Kane, you can go make a song? And to answer your other question off that too, I created a song based off of desperation. I needed a property manager in Kalamazoo, Adrian, and I was so incredibly saddened that I couldn't find one. And we were paying well. We had a good pitch. So I grabbed my guitar one day, and if we put this out, we can drop it, maybe link so people can get a good laugh. But it was truly just a sad song about how I need a property manager in Kalamazoo. Afterwards, I thought, you know what? At least I'm doing everything I can do. If somebody doesn't at least laugh at that, I don't know anybody else that's done that. So I just, I went with, that's what inspired me to do that. I think my upbringing inspires me to do these goofy things. Also, just to be different than everything I see inspires me to do these goofy filters and just fun things. The stuff that's always inspired me is being a little bit different. I think that's okay. Like I said, having fun is the back burner thing. People are afraid to have fun. People are afraid to laugh. People like to laugh. Who doesn't like to laugh? And our world needs more of it. So thank you for thinking it's awesome and funny. And it's what I am, so I'm going to do it. And to answer your question, I have never had one of the higher ups at Monarch ever reach out to me and say, "Hey, Kane, you need to cut it out," or "Hey, you don't need to do that," or "Hey, that's too far." I've had people, suggest things like on the marketing side, and I get it. I mean, you got to stay within reasons. But to answer your question, I have never had anybody. I've actually, Kathy Nichols, Bob's wife, the owner's wife, has actually reached out and loves the videos that I do. And to me, that was the coolest thing ever. There's one where I'm jumping in a pool and just being me. So if anything, they've embraced it. And I think at the end of the day, if I saw that stuff, I'm not saying just because Kane's funny or goofy or different that I want to work for him, but I would think that that's got to be a company that at least is a little bit fun. Maybe that's not just so bread and butter, cookie cutter. Somebody that appreciates originality. In our world, we need to be more open-minded. I mean, how judgmental is our world as a whole? It's bad. It's terrible. And so, it's okay, I think, to branch out. And I found my niche, and I'm going to run with it. And I wouldn't trade what I do. Some of the stuff is ridiculously funny and absurd, but at the end of the day, it's a call to action. If it can catch your attention, like that guy that was negative about it, at least I caught his eye, right? I'm looking at it from a sales bargain. At least he took time to comment. I must have done something. So, no, I appreciate you noticing that. And it is something that I've never had a kickback from the higher ups. I think they encourage me to be myself. And, if I ever did anything too overboard, I think they'd probably tell me. But I love that they're, it just shows our humble culture. Like I said, it's jeans and flannel. We all know each other. And I'm actually really thankful for that, because you're right. It could be really, Kane, take that down. Kane, you can't do that. It's awesome. I get to just run with, with however I feel or whatever I think is the best thing to do at the time. And hopefully I answered that. Kind of went on a rant there. Sorry.
You sure did. Keep being different and keep being awesome, because I love your brand.
Thank you.
And watch who you are, what you stand for. Again, this caught my eye the very first time we connected on LinkedIn, and I'm actually so glad that you accepted my invitation to just be here and chat. It's a treat for me. It's a treat.
Awesome. It's the same. It's a mutual feeling. I love the way you treat people, and everybody. There's not one person I've ever met or encountered that is like, AD is just not, he's a terrible person. I've never heard or seen anything other than, so, the testament is to you too, man. You should be proud of who you are and how you treat people. I mean, you don't do it for the fame. You're not doing this for you. If anything, you're probably doing this for me, which I also appreciate. But the fact you even considered me humbles me. And, it's okay to say thank you for all you do for our industry too, man. And, it's mutual for sure, 100%. I hope we get to do it more, man, to be honest.
It's very kind of you to say that. And I had to say that, I've done things in the past that I'm not super proud of as a, manager, supervisor. And I just came to a realization that at the end of the day, you just have to be good to people, right? First, the rest, it's always going to, work itself out. I wasn't always that person, but I learned from my mistakes. I believe so, right? So I try my very best. I try my hardest to make up for, for the mistakes that I've done in the past. And I just know that this is the only way, at least to me, right? Just try to do good by people, help without expecting anything in return. You don't have to worry about the rest. The rest will always work itself out. That's just personal experience. Some other people might say differently, but that's my personal experience. It worked out for me in ways that I can't even imagine. I'm actually humbled by the level of, I guess, attention and nice, kind things like what you just said that I'm hearing all the time. At the end of the day, I had to stay real too, because you can't get high on your own supply. Don't get too full of myself, because that's also a dangerous thing to do, right? You had to keep your head down and keep plugging along, because this is it's a long journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And again, don't get too I guess impressed with yourself. I don't take myself seriously. Sometimes I do funny stuff or goofy stuff, and actually post about that type of stuff. I don't think we should all take ourselves too serious, regardless of the positions that we're in. So thank you for your kind words, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The next topic that I want to touch on is career coaching. Of course, you're a recruiter, but I'm sure that you could be a career coach with so many people you've met throughout your career and seeing things that they might do that are not the best things for themselves in their best interest. So with that being said, I'd like to ask you, what advice would you have for someone that is ready to elevate their career, to move up the ladder?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say there's no timeline. So being monarch in 20 states, right? You're going to have opportunities to grow. Get in and grind. It's not going to be given to you. I think people, if you're educated, you come out of college, it's not their fault, right? You want to have a good job. You want to be the next analyst in Monarch. Analyst works right underneath an asset manager with acquisitions, dispositions, the whole 9 yards. I think the advice I'd give them is there's no time clock. Don't expect in a year or half a year that you're going to be bumped up. If you are, it's because you deserved it. You've earned it. But keep in mind, it might be 2 years, 5 years from now. But I tell them this, and it's the absolute truth, because I lived and breathed it. I've seen a lot in the 9 years I've been with Monarch. There's no time clock. get in and grind. That's the other thing. Work your tail off. Be the first person. I actually love that I'm usually the last person to leave work. I'm usually the last person out of this office. I'm not always the first one here, but I think doing those little things that just go above and beyond. No one can tell you how hard you're going to work, right? No one can tell you that. And that in your heart, no one can ever take your heart, your passion. So I say embrace that, but apply it. Stay late, volunteer at an event, do something that shows your character outside of obvious things, and go back to our rule we talked about. Don't do it for the benefit of, hey, I volunteered at that, so I'm a good person. I'm going to put it online that Kane volunteered. Well, Kane, I should volunteer. I should do more, to be honest. But do it for the right reasons, right? So to answer your question, no time clock, but embrace that. It might be 5 years from now, but get in, put in your time, do empirical things that make a difference. Stay late, help somebody out unconditionally, volunteer your time, offer to pick up or whatever, a different project, whatever you can. I think those are the main things. And like you said, stay humble. Always learn, be open-minded, go grab a certification. I mean, our industry, man, it's so amazing how much we pay for. Don't close the door either. If you think you're doing a good job, keep it open, keep getting certified. We'll take care of people at Monarch, but in general, I think be open-minded and aggressive to learning. Also take chances. Like you saying, Kane, do you want to hop on this podcast? I think I said absolutely. Anytime those opportunities are presented, I highly recommend. I've told this to one of my best friends. I said, if something comes at you, just take it. Take the chance at least. I mean, I'm not saying just jump jobs, but like if somebody presents an opportunity, you take it. So I think that might be something that could, get them going, but stay educated and stay hungry. We can't place the heart or passion in somebody. We can't make you stay late. So if you embrace those things, I think good things can happen. And I think that's what I would tell somebody.
That's amazing advice. And I'm 100% with what you said.
Cool.
Next, on average, employers, recruiters, they're looking at resumes for 6 to 7 seconds. That's all they spend on a resume. What practical advice do you have for a candidate who wants to be noticed by recruiters and hiring managers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've always seen, the cover letter is kind of a thing of the past, but here's what I love about cover letters. It gives you that quick 5 seconds that might be 5 separate seconds from the resume that just says, hey, dear hiring manager, dear Monarch Investment, I might not have all the qualifications you possess, but I guarantee you I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to work my tail off, and I'm going to do everything I can to benefit your organization. I would love it if you would consider me. I don't think you'd be disappointed. Something like that, like a pitch on a cover letter, can change the whole tempo. I think even the aesthetics of a resume, silly enough, even for maintenance, you don't have to have a whoop-de-doopty, but maybe just a different color, different design that's, once again, go back to our rule of be a little bit different. Something that's different. You see the same thing, make sure it looks presentable. I've always thought putting a picture is always a cool thing, right? Put a little picture in the corner of your resume so I can put a face to a name and go, okay, cool. It almost feels like you already know this person, That's kind of a cool little hack I like. And I think that if it's not the cover letter, you're just brief summary, you got your name thing, just something quick, but different. Like I want to be, not I'm going to be, because that's braggadocious, take a step back, but I want to be the next top leasing agent at Monarch. Or I want to be, if given the opportunity, I'm going to do everything I can to be the next best leasing agent for Monarch. Something that grabs me, because if I'm always excited when I talk to people, but if you're not excited, it's hard for me to be super excited, right? So grab my attention with something unique, a quick paraphrase, a structured resume, maybe a picture in the side, and a genuine cover letter of your intentions. If you want it, present it, and run with it. I've always said, and my team probably gonna laugh at me, but it's always like dating, right? It's almost like it's not really much different. It's how you treat people. It's how that first impression, right? So for me in my life, my first impression is I'm going to treat you awesomely, and I'm going to try to be a little bit different. So I think trying to brand yourself in that quick little snippet is hard with those 7 to 9 seconds we're looking at them. But get a little bit creative is my last thing. Have a little fun with it and try not to be like everybody else.
I'll go a step further. I'll say at 6-7 seconds is not dating, it's speed dating.
Speed dating. Right. That is true. Right. I can also tell you I'm spending way more than that if it's a maintenance resume. That's a funny story I can go over with real quick. We have a technician, Harold, that still works for us. Absolutely phenomenal guy. Every time I see him, I give him a big hug, and he's kind of my fun story. So his resume said, I can paint, plumb, just a quick little sentence. I can do whatever you need me to do for this position. So what did I do? Just like my mom taught me, I told you, in the small town, I'm not going to judge anybody. I'm going to treat everybody the same, truly. Called up Harold and said, Harold, not the most fancy resume I ever seen, but I love that you're honest. You said you can do this. If you can do this, let me ask you this. Boom, boom, boom. Come to find out, he's one of the best technicians we ever hired. And it goes back to that golden rule of what you're saying about recruiters. If they're only spending 7 to 9 seconds, which we do glance and we get a good good coverage of what we're looking at, but we got to be spending way more time with that if we truly care about that applicant. And I really am not being corny when I say this. I look at every applicant as a thank you. A thank you for applying. So I'm going to give you the time. But yeah, you got to grab me for sure. But I think, being open-minded, right? Not judgmental, taking more than 7 to 9 seconds. Make it a minute per resume. Are you giving them the adequate time? Because we talked about when we first started this conversation, people come from different backgrounds. I came from restaurants. So you're telling me somebody that evolved into a senior recruiter is somebody you should overlook for leasing because they worked in restaurants? That'd be a mistake. Somebody like you that was a groundskeeper 20 years ago or whatever, if you're going to overlook them, I think they'd make one of the biggest mistakes they could. And it always goes back to that football thing. I always bring up Tom Brady. I mean, he was like almost the last pick of the draft. He's the best that's ever played the quarterback position. So there's always those hidden gems. So I encourage recruiters to spend a little bit more than 7 to 9 seconds. But you're right. The reality is that's pretty much what it boils down to. But I think we need to be better as recruiters, making that even double or a little bit longer.
Now, a lot of candidates, especially maintenance candidates, don't have advanced interview skills, just like the gentleman you mentioned, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Or not necessary interview skills. You mentioned about like resume building skills, but
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about interviewing skills, right? They don't know
Yeah.
how to sell themselves.
Right.
Now, I like to ask you, what advice would you have for someone who is preparing to go to an interview? Any specific advice for a maintenance technician candidate? Because that's kind of the most sought out position. And I think that we're at times missing out because the candidates don't have they're not versed enough in interviewing skills to sell themselves so they could communicate how much they have to bring to the table.
That's an amazing question. You're pretty good, man. Here's what I say. Have them focus on the KSAs, which is all that matters, the knowledge, skills, and abilities. As a maintenance tech, you don't need to sell you and go, I'm so much fun. And they're like, wow, that guy was awesome. No, I can have that maintenance technician focus on what they can bring to the team, their actual knowledge, skills, and abilities, not the personality, not the, oh man, when he leaves, as true recruiters and genuine professionals, if we're equal opportunity employers, we're supposed to do this and look at the knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? So remind them, not everybody has to be a talker, but also just reinstate your knowledge, skills, and abilities. So if you're not a super talker, kind of nervous, just say, hey, just so you know, this is what I can do. I'm comfortable doing this, and also be honest. Maybe say, hey, I'm not the best at interviewing, right? Have them use the honesty card because that's going to put the person in their shoes if they're, a good person, which most of us hopefully are. And they'll say, okay, this isn't, just be honest. Hey, interviewing isn't my top suit, just, up front, but I thank you for letting me come in. As you can see my resume, if you don't mind, focus on what I can bring on the knowledge, skills, and abilities. Maybe I'm not the best at interviewing, maybe not the best with internet, but think about it. The maintenance techs don't have to be the most talkable person. Sometimes it's better if they don't talk. Sometimes we get our techs on site that talk too much, but somebody can grind. So I would encourage them to focus on their knowledge, skills, and abilities. I'd focus on just being honest in the interview. If they're kind of uncomfortable, just say, hey, not the best at this, but I'm happy to be here, and I don't want you to feel like I'm not going to be a good fit. I think being upfront is never a bad thing, to be honest. And I also think, it's always one of those things, you could ask for advice. Sometimes people ask me, I always say dress to impress too. You can always control what you dress like, right? I think it's always okay to dress to impress. It's always a first impression, right? And you're right, though. I think they get lost in the transition of, did I like this person or will they fit? How do you really know if they're going to fit? You know what I mean? Do they have the knowledge, skills, and abilities? If they do, then we should really be strongly considering them. It's not always about how much you like them or how well they feel. Like you said, they might be uncomfortable. Maybe they have anxiety or things that trouble them every day that they're not able to be as professional as they want to be. Let's treat them like humans and give them a fair shot. And I think, gosh, man, I'm trying to answer your question because it's good. I would think that have them be proud that they're in a field. Remind them maybe as recruiters, hey, just, you're interviewing for this job that is in high demand. Please don't be over intimidated. Be yourself. Dress to impress. It's never a bad thing. It's a first impression. If you get uncomfortable, maybe just be honest and tell them, hey, sorry, I'm not the best at this. And then just focus on what you can do for them. And there's maintenance tests we stay consistent with that we do. Some people aren't test takers. I've had some of the best technicians. They're like, Kane, that test was crazy. I'm not a test taker. But so at that point, hand in that test if you're the guy interviewing and say, you know what, I know this sounds like a thing that you might hear, but I'm just not the best at taking tests. But take me to a unit. And at that point, why don't we walk them around? We've done this. We need to do it more. Show me how to swap out a ballast and a light fixture. Why don't you replace that garbage disposal or unjam it for us? Give them some actual technical stuff and just let them show you. I think would be a good thing we could do to make it even more fair for the people that do have a hard time interviewing, I guess. I think we need to be more open too. I don't think it's always just about that person didn't interview well or they're not prepared for it. Are we treating them the way they should be treated? Kind of that golden rule.
I want to keep you in a candidate's corner, right?
Okay.
And just be a coach for your candidate. Okay. How do you get the best offer? What advice would you have for candidates on salary negotiations? How to get the best out of their, themselves, who they are, their skill set?
Yeah, I would it's a good question. I would say don't settle for sure because you're in demand, whether they know it or not. I think great maintenance techs could work just about anywhere. So what I would do is look at the market. I would take a half hour to look on Indeed, look at what other companies are paying. You can look all this up, kind of figure out where your base pay is and what your worth is. I wouldn't settle for anything that doesn't make you feel valued. I would look at reviews on the company, the culture of the company before I made a decision if I'm that candidate. But I wouldn't settle. I would look at get a good, market survey of the area of what people are paying. And at the end of the day, I would go with how I was treated, truthfully. I think that I might personally take myself, but everybody's different, take $1 or $2 pay hit for a company that treated me good when I walked in the door, because if they don't, somebody else will treat you better. So I guess I would try to get a market survey of the area of what other things are paying. I'd also know my worth too, right? Everybody knows an ideal ballpark of what they want to make. But I also wouldn't be afraid to push back if you think it's an unfair offer and it's a good company. I would say, hey, I think that could we beat in the middle? Just that confidence boost of, hey, the ball's in the maintenance core. I would fight for what you think makes you feel valued, I guess, to answer it.
The next topic is counter offers. I want to start by asking you, roughly, what percentage would you say of your candidates that you're making offers to are coming back and saying, I have accepted a counter offer from my current company and I decided to stay there? What percentage?
Yeah.
And secondly, I wanted to ask second question, what is your personal opinion or advice for the candidates or taking counter offers or not?
Yeah, great question. To start off, I wouldn't think it's everyone. I'd say maybe around 20 to 25%, 1 in 4 that might say, hey, my current company matched or this or that. I also felt like with COVID, it was more than that, to be honest. And I don't know if it was just a matter of, hey, I can do what I want kind of thing, a mentality on the candidate standpoint. But I'd say probably about 1 in 4, we kind of see that push back on that side. And then you mentioned your second part was if they counter.
What do you advise if you were to be their coach, right?
Oh, okay.
You will coach them. they're not interviewing with you, they're interviewing basically with someone else.
Gotcha.
And they went, they got a solid offer, they went back. Their current company is doing a counter offer. What if you were their coach in their corner? What would you advise? Should they take the counter offer? Should they not take the counter offer?
I would say this. I would say, how do you feel about both situations? One you've already worked at, you kind of have a feel for the culture and stuff. The other one you kind of like, and they're giving you an offer. I would question them as a coach to say, why didn't that first company? Why aren't they taking care of you? Why do you got to go elsewhere for them to counter your value? I would question that highly, much on the current company. You shouldn't have to fight for your value, right? You shouldn't. So that's one thing I would coach them on. And I'd also say, the grass isn't always greener on the other side too. That's another thing I'd like to say. You might have a company that offer you $25 an hour as a tech, you're making 22. You might be walking into just a totally unorganized mess, older unit counts, bad plumbing. I mean, you've done this for a long time. So I would, if it's somebody personal I'm coaching, I would say, just so you know, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Remind them of that, but also say, hey, I don't think it's bad to explore other opportunities. What do you want? What does your heart tell you? I know that sounds kind of corny, but what's your heart telling you? Is it saying, hey, I should take this offer, or I should stay? At the end of the day, I would consult the people that are closest to me, run everything by them, maybe do a pro-con list, truly, and say, hey, but I would factor on the fact that the past company hasn't made them feel valued enough for what their market value is in their position. So I think that's something I'd reiterate. I'd also ask them what their heart says. And, what do you think you're worth at the end of the day? I mean, it's okay to fight for stuff, but yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it does happen. It's a very real question. It's a good question. But you shouldn't ever have to question your value, right? You shouldn't have to even look in the first place if you're feeling good, right?
Definitely. I have several more questions that I want to go over.
Go ahead. Yeah, you're good.
Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's start shooting.
Okay.
What advice would you have for a young person coming out of high school or college, getting ready to enter real life? What would be one very valuable piece of advice, in your opinion, that you would share?
I would go off of what I even said earlier. I would come in early, stay late at whatever job you get. I would go above and beyond to thank everybody, from the person that cleans the bathrooms to the person that you see at the thing. Treat everybody exactly the same, because people are going to start talking about how you're treating people. Your character is based on what other people say. It's not what you think about yourself. So thank everybody unconditionally on odd days. Be the first one in, the last one to leave if you can. Also realize that time clock, right? There's no time clock that says, hey, you're going to be here or there. But if you do these things, you show up, you work hard, work your tail off, volunteer, do something that stands out, but don't expect things to happen overnight would be another thing. But I think just get in, grind, work hard, thank people, and take chances. Like I said, if someone gives you an opportunity, run with it and just do it.
In the past 3 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
In my personal life?
Yes.
I think, truthfully, just trying to be, I guess, I don't know. I'm really big. I've got a 7-year-old son. He's my life. His name's Ace. He's awesome. I've got a beautiful wife, Amy. I think I've just been realizing that through COVID, it was kind of this tough time. I've just been trying to be the best I can be, even outside of work, to just a better person. I've always treated people, I think, pretty well, but I haven't really changed any behaviors, I don't think. But I think just realizing the gift of life and how fortunate we are to have the things we have. Just being more grateful, I guess, would be the answer in every facet of life, whether it's my home, my son, my wife, my job, my friends. I'm pretty fortunate, and I think we need to be thankful for those things.
Okay, when you lose focus or feel overwhelmed, how do you get back on track?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because sometimes we do feel that way. Honestly, music is my uplift. I listen to positive bands. Saves the Day's been rocking me lately. Old school kind of punk pop stuff. Neck Deep is a new band I've been listening to. Music brings me out of slumps. It gets me going. And even if it's just a change of mindset. I like happy music, like upbeat pop punk stuff is lately just been awesome. So sometimes that brings me up out of it. I've actually talked, I want to give Andy Newell, our CFO, a huge shout out to. He's the CFO of Monarch, this huge company. He reached out to me and said, Kane, I know you've been dealing with some health stuff. What do you need? Or do you want to talk to me? How amazing is that? So just like realizing you do have outlets, and people that do that are the people that you need to reach out to, and also just being not afraid to say, hey, I've had a crap day, or hey, it's been really tough. On those funk days, I go back to my basics, my family too. I go home and just appreciate them and just look at what I have, and listen to fun music, and be thankful for the people that reach out, that say, hey, when you're having a rough day, let's meet up. I've got a lot of great friends too, man. I'm super fortunate, to be honest.
Kane, in closing, I like to ask you, first of all, to say it's been an incredible pleasure to have you all here to chat with you for over an hour now.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, time flies by when you have fun. I'll say in closing, is there anything that you like to add? Maybe answer a question that you wish I would have asked and I didn't, or just say something in closing, anything for the audience.
Yeah, no, I think no, I don't. And like I said, I can't thank you enough, man. It has been fun, and it hasn't felt like it's all natural with you. So that's just hats off to you. You're great at what you do. You're such a huge positive influence, and like you said, it's awesome you're honest about your past. Like, we've all had things that we've done, but you're a phenomenal individual. The way you treat people, I've never seen anybody ever in my life that just walks around to trade shows and just people want to get pictures, and like, you're the celebrity for us. So everything you're doing, keep doing it, man. You're fantastic, and I truly mean this. Hopefully you can tell I'm pretty genuine and passionate, but thanks for allowing me to come on here. It's a true honor, and it's been awesome. So that's definitely there. But as far as questions, no, I think you've been in the trenches, for what, 20 plus years of the maintenance side. I just think it's time we start paying you guys a little bit better. And I think we also need to try to take things away. You got to make the noise go away. Our on-call, we need to figure out. When you're done with work, the last thing you want to do is work, right? We got to figure out a way to do on-call better. We have to pay better. And I also think snow removal in a lot of our regions is hard on our guys. I wanted, if you don't mind, if I can pick your brain on that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, with overall for just maintenance, are we paying enough? What are your thoughts on call, and should we get more creative? And snow removal, curious what your thoughts are on that, just from being in the trenches, because you've lived and breathed this. I've just been on the recruiting side, so I would love to hear that if you got time. Yeah.
So are we paying enough? No, we're not paying enough. I do wage comparison at least quarterly for the markets that we're in, and there's still a significant gap between what we pay, not just the company I work for, the industry pays, our industry pays,
right,
and the trades, for example. So we had to close that gap. We have to make it more attractive for individuals to want to come work for us. And one of the second reason, I guess, after pay will be on call. You just mentioned that. Do we have to get more creative with on call? Yeah. Do we want to service our residents 100%? I would like to offer them the white glove service. I really do. But then if I don't have the personnel, the people, the bodies in place, enough people in place to offer that type of service, what do I do? Well, for the first thought is I'm going to go and outsource, and which we are as an industry, right? But then, you got to find that balance. How much do you really want to outsource? And is there maybe a better way to do this, a middle ground? And I think there is, right? If you just limit after hour and weekend emergencies to fire, flood, or blood, and contract some of that work when it's possible, when it makes sense, I think that really helps tremendously. That's one thing. Secondly, is like paying as much as you can, incentivize the time that they spend on call. So first of all, don't send them home earlier because they came in the middle of the night for 3 hours to handle a flood. Don't send them home the next day because there's no incentive. They end up like making an extra trip, spending extra money on gas purely for the company's benefit. They're not benefited with anything. They ruined their night. They didn't get a full night's sleep, and they still got to show up the next day to work. So pay them for the time that they spend out there, and also maybe throw another incentive. I heard up to like $250 per week that companies are paying for someone to just be on call, like on top of the hours that they get from working.
That's awesome.
You're on call, you're gonna get $250 for just being on call. It makes it to where you turn the tables from people hating to be on call to actually fighting to be on call, because it's extra income. And we know with inflation rates and everything that's going out there, wages shrinking, like real buying power shrinking, like that's a real way for them to to make up for the for the inflation, for the lost wages. And that's not a small thing. Right. And I think you had snow removal was the third one. So I never oversaw states where snow removal it's a significant thing. But I will say this: just like anything else, you had to look at workload, right? What can we, and it goes back to the on-call situation. Most of the polls that I do on LinkedIn, people that complain about work in general and maintenance in particular, they're saying we're overworked and underappreciated. So let's start over there. Why are they overworked? What can we do to release the pressure, to relieve some of that burden, to the load, to lighten the load for them, so they don't feel like they're always work themselves to death. And one way is to look at making it possible for them, when they're short-staffed or whatever, to outsource some of the snow removal. I think not necessary to pay to outsource it all 100%, but when they have that opportunity to outsource, I think that you'll be surprised how people are actually taking ownership and not taking advantage to outsource everything, but just make that an option for them when they're short staff or overwhelmed, or the property is too large for them to cover a house, or it might take them a week to remove the snow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep.
Well, Kane, was a real pleasure having you here, sir. I still had a lot of questions unanswered. Hoping that this is a segue for us.
Let's do it again whenever you're ready, man.
The opportunity to bring you back in for a second conversation. I truly enjoy it. It's been
I had an amazing time. Thanks for everything, AD, and thanks for everything you do, and it's been awesome.
Everybody, thank you very much for watching us. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Daniela, and I hope to see you back here soon on the next episode. Have a great day.